Why would a stranger accuse you of being a spy in your own neighborhood? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and electric, as Daniel Park stood frozen in the community center parking lot. His tailored suit, crisp from a long day at the office, felt out of place under the flickering streetlights. The woman before him, Karen, her face twisted with venom, jabbed a finger inches from his chest. Her voice, shrill and unrelenting, sliced through the evening calm. I know your type. You're here spying, aren't you? Taking notes, reporting back to who knows where. Her words dripped with accusation, each syllable a blade aimed at Daniel's dignity. The small crowd misses. Ellis, the elderly librarian, and a wide-eyed teenager named Jake stood paralyzed, their breaths caught in the tension. Daniel's heart pounded, not from fear but from the sheer absurdity of it all. He was no spy. He was a man who'd built a life from nothing, a CEO who'd clawed his way up from a one-room apartment to a corner office. Yet here, in the neighborhood he'd called home for years, he was reduced to a caricature in this woman's eyes. Karen's tirade didn't stop. Her cheeks flushed red, her voice growing louder, as if volume could cement her baseless claims. I've seen you, always in that fancy suit, lurking around, watching us. You don't belong here. Daniel's jaw tightened. He'd faced prejudice before, whispers in boardrooms, sideways glances at galas, but this was different. This was raw, public, and personal. He wanted to fire back, to match her venom with facts, but he held his tongue. Years of navigating corporate battlegrounds had taught him restraint. Instead, he met her gaze, his dark eyes steady. Ma'am, I live here. I'm just heading to the community meeting. His voice was calm, measured, but it only seemed to fuel her rage. Don't lie to me, she snapped, stepping closer, her bulk imposing. You're one of those foreign agents. I read about it online. The absurdity stung, but what hurt more was the silence of the onlookers. Mrs. Ellis clutched her purse, her lips trembling, while Jake shifted uncomfortably, his phone half raised as if unsure whether to record or run. Daniel's mind raced. He'd come to the community center to announce his latest project, a scholarship fund for local kids, born from his own memories of scraping by on ramen and dreams. He'd poured millions into it, a quiet way to give back to the place that had shaped him. Yet here he was, defending his right to exist in his own community. The irony burned. Karen's accusations weren't just about him, they were an attack on every person who'd ever been made to feel like an outsider. He could walk away, let her stew in her ignorance, but something in him stirred. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the kids he was trying to help, the ones who'd face the same hatred if nothing changed. He straightened, his voice firm but still calm. I'm not who you think I am, but I'm happy to talk inside, at the meeting. Karen scoffed, her eyes narrowing. Talk? You're not fooling anyone. The tension hung thick, a standoff under the dim streetlights. Mrs. Ellis finally spoke, her voice shaky but kind. Karen, maybe we should all just go inside and sort this out. Karen whirled on her, her face a mask of indignation. Sort it out? He's a threat, Margaret. You're all blind. Jake, emboldened, muttered under his breath. Lady, you're the one causing a scene. Karen's head snapped toward him, but before she could retort, Daniel raised a hand. Enough. Let's take this inside. His tone carried authority, not anger, and for a moment, Karen faltered. The crowd began to move toward the community center, a low murmur rippling through them. Daniel's heart still raced, but a plan was forming. He wasn't here to fight Karen, he was here to prove her wrong. Inside, the community center buzzed with anticipation. Folding chairs lined the room, filled with neighbors of all ages, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Daniel took his seat near the front, Karen a few rows back, her arms crossed, her glare unrelenting. The meeting was meant to be a celebration, a chance to unveil the scholarship fund that would send 10 local kids to college next year. Daniel had worked for months with the board, crunching numbers, securing donors, all while keeping it quiet. He wanted the announcement to feel like a gift, not a boast. But Karen's outburst had shifted the mood. Whispers spread, eyes darting between him and her. He could feel the weight of her accusations lingering, poisoning the air. The board president, Mr. Thompson, a wiry man with a kind smile, took the podium. Folks, we've got something special tonight, he began, his voice warm. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. Daniel's stomach twisted. He hadn't expected this to be aired so publicly, but Mr. Thompson's eyes met his, a silent nod of support. There's been some tension tonight, Thompson continued, and I think it's only fair we clear the air. Karen stood, her chair scraping loudly. I'll say it again, it's not who he says he is. I've got proof. She waved her phone, her voice triumphant. The room went silent, all eyes on her. Daniel's pulse quickened. Proof? What could she possibly have? A blog post? A conspiracy thread? He leaned forward, his calm exterior masking the storm within. This was his moment not to defend himself, but to turn the tide. He stood, his voice cutting through the silence. I'd like to see that proof, Karen. And then I'd like to share something with everyone here. The room held its breath, the stage set for a reckoning. Karen's phone shook in her hand as she thrust it forward, her face a mix of defiance and glee. It's all here, she declared, her voice echoing in the community center. The screen glowed with a blurry screen showed a grainy photo of Daniel at a local coffee shop, captioned with wild claims about suspicious activity from some obscure online forum. The room murmured, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Daniel's eyes narrowed, not at the image but at the audacity of it all. He'd been at that coffee shop meeting a donor for the scholarship fund, discussing how to expand it to include trade school programs. The photo was nothing but a moment stolen and twisted. He could have laughed at the absurdity, but the weight of every gaze in the room kept him grounded. This wasn't just about him, it was about the truth. Mr. Thompson, still at the podium, raised a hand for calm. Karen, let's hear Daniel out. He deserves that. Karen's lips pursed, but she sat, her glare unrelenting. Daniel stepped forward, his heart steady now. He'd faced boardrooms full of sharks. One woman's accusations wouldn't undo him. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, he began, his voice clear, carrying the weight of years spent proving himself. I'm not here to argue about photos or rumors. I'm here to talk about why I came back to this neighborhood. He paused, letting the words settle. I grew up 3 blocks from here. Single mom, no money, no connections. I was the kid who couldn't afford new sneakers, who studied by streetlight because our power got cut off. But this community people like Mrs. Ellis, who let me read in the library after hours, gave me a chance. A soft gasp rippled through the room. Mrs. Ellis dabbed her eyes, her face softening with memory. Jake, the teenager, leaned forward, his phone forgotten. Karen's scowl faltered, but only for a moment. Daniel continued, his voice steady but laced with emotion. I'm no spy. I'm the CEO of ParkTech, a company I built from nothing. And I'm here tonight to announce a scholarship fund 10 full rides for kids in this neighborhood, starting next year. The room erupted in gasps and applause, the energy shifting like a tide. Karen's face froze, her phone slipping slightly in her grip. Daniel didn't look at her. He didn't need to. The truth was his weapon, and he wielded it with precision. But then came the twist, a memory that hit him like a punch. As the applause died down, a woman in the back stood, her voice trembling but clear. Daniel, is that really you? It was Ms. Lynn, his high school math teacher, her hair grayer now but her eyes unmistakable. She'd been the one who'd pushed him to apply for his first scholarship, the one that changed his life. I thought you looked familiar, she said, tears brimming. You were my student. You used to stay late working on those math problems. Her voice broke, and Daniel's composure cracked. He hadn't seen her in years, hadn't known she still lived here. The room felt smaller, the air heavier with shared history. Ms. Lynn's words weren't just a memory, they were a reminder of why he'd fought so hard to give back. He nodded, his throat tight. Yes, Ms. Lynn. It's me. The crowd murmured, some wiping tears, others whispering in awe. Karen's face was unreadable, her hands now still. The meeting pressed on, but the air had changed. Daniel outlined the scholarship details, how it would cover tuition, books, even mentorship programs. Neighbors asked questions, their excitement palpable. Karen remained silent, her earlier bravado gone. But Daniel knew this wasn't over. She'd backed down for now, but her kind of anger didn't vanish, it simmered. As the meeting ended, people crowded around him, shaking his hand, sharing stories of their own struggles. Ms. Lin hugged him, whispering, "I'm so proud." For a moment he felt invincible. But as he stepped outside, Karen was waiting, her arms crossed, her face a storm ready to break. "You think you're some hero?" she hissed, her voice low but venomous. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just the two of them under the streetlights. Daniel stopped, his patience thinning. "Karen, I don't need to be a hero. I just want to help." She laughed, a bitter sound. "Help? You're buying their loyalty with your money." "I'm not fooled." Her words stung, but they also revealed her. This wasn't about him being a spy, it was about her fear, her need to control a world she didn't understand. Daniel took a step closer, his voice low but firm. "You don't get to decide who belongs here. This community isn't yours to gatekeep." Her eyes widened, but before she could respond, headlights swept across the lot. A police car pulled up, its lights flashing silently. Daniel's heart sank. Had she called them? The police officer stepped out, his face stern but neutral. "We got a call about a disturbance," he said, his eyes flicking between Daniel and Karen. Karen's face lit up, her confidence surging. "Officer, this man's been causing trouble all night," she declared, pointing at Daniel. "He's not who he says he is. I have proof he's spying." Daniel's stomach churned, but he stood tall, his years of facing high-stakes negotiations steadying him. He'd dealt with worse than this. "Officer, I'm Daniel Park, a resident here. I was at the community meeting announcing a scholarship fund. This woman's been making baseless accusations." The officer raised an eyebrow, glancing at Karen's phone as she shoved it toward him, the same blurry screenshot glowing on the screen. The officer studied it, then handed it back. "Ma'am, this doesn't prove anything. Let's all calm down." Karen's face reddened, her voice rising. "Calm down? He's a threat. You need to arrest him." The officer sighed, clearly unimpressed. "Ma'am, unless you have actual evidence of a crime, there's nothing I can do." Daniel seized the moment, his voice steady. "Officer, I'd like to file a complaint for harassment. This woman's been targeting me with false claims, publicly slandering me." Karen's jaw dropped, her bravado crumbling. The officer nodded, pulling out a notepad. "All right, sir. I'll take your statement. Ma'am, you'll need to come with me to discuss this." Karen sputtered, her words incoherent as the reality hit. Her accusations, built on nothing but prejudice and paranoia, had backfired. The officer led Karen to the car to take her statement, her protests fading into the night. Daniel stood alone, the weight of the evening settling on his shoulders. He'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. The community center doors opened behind him, and Ms. Lin stepped out, her face soft with concern. "You okay, Daniel?" she asked. He nodded, though his heart was heavy. "I just wanted to do something good," he said quietly. She placed a hand on his arm. "You are. Don't let her take that from you." Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge of doubt. He thought of the kids who'd benefit from the scholarships, the ones who'd get a chance he'd fought so hard for. This was bigger than Karen, bigger than one ugly moment. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with the story. Karen's accusations had spread, but so had the truth. Jake had posted a video of the meeting online, capturing Daniel's speech and Ms. Lin's emotional reunion. It went viral, not for the drama but for the hope it inspired. Comments poured in, stories of kids who'd applied for the scholarships, neighbors offering to volunteer, even apologies from those who'd stayed silent during Karen's outburst. Daniel's phone buzzed with messages from donors wanting to expand the fund. The community was rallying, not around him, but around the idea that they could rise above division. Karen, meanwhile, faced consequences. The harassment complaint led to a formal warning, and whispers spread that she'd been banned from the community center for disruptive behavior. Her name became a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when fear overrides reason. Daniel stood in his office a week later, looking out over the city skyline. The scholarship fund was fully launched, applications flooding in. He thought of his younger self, the boy who'd felt invisible, and of Ms. Lin, who'd seen him when no one else did. He thought of Karen, too, not with anger, but with a kind of pity. She tried to tear him down, but in doing so, she'd only lifted him higher. He turned to his desk, where a photo of his mother smiled back at him. "We did it, Mom," he whispered. The neighborhood wasn't perfect, but it was his, and he'd keep fighting for it, one scholarship, one truth, one moment at a time. The world could be cruel, but it could also be kind, if you gave it a chance to heal.